When I was around 12 years old, my cousin introduced me to a game with a spiky-haired Keyblade master running around an Aladdin-inspired world with Donald and Goofy, and I instantly fell in love. Kingdom Hearts ranked number 2 in my top 10 PS2 games, and as I said in that video, something about the themes of light, darkness, and friendship really tugged at my angsty teen heartstrings. Plus, the combination of Final Fantasy and Disney characters was just crazy enough to work. Then Kingdom Hearts 2 came along, and while it made some big changes to gameplay and story, I remember loving it all the same. But with Kingdom Hearts 3 just on the horizon, I thought it'd be a good idea to analyze the first 2 installments to see what worked, what didn't work, and what we might expect out of the newest game later this year. Let's talk about it. I think a big part of what made Kingdom Hearts 1 work is that, relatively speaking, it was simple. A young boy on a solitary island gets whisked away to various worlds to go on a wild adventure to find his friends. Are we gonna talk about how they all have parents but totally don't care about ever seeing them again? No?
Wait a minute! What happened to my home? My island? Riku! Kairi!
The threat of a main villain is clear from the beginning, and for the most part, it doesn't get convoluted. Ansem is the big bad, end of story. Then Kingdom Hearts 2 threw all of that away, but I'm getting ahead of myself. There's a consistent goal throughout, and while yes, there are other bosses and smaller climaxes along the way, it has a lot to offer without bogging down the experience. Visiting the various Disney worlds and seeing the characters you've loved since childhood in these new, wacky situations that also relate to the main plot was amazing, and something I'd never really seen before. Rolling up to a new planet and being like, oh man, what's it gonna be? I have no idea. What? A Nightmare Before Christmas level? Are you serious? Is something this game only could have done because of its source material. It creates something familiar and new all at the same time. A lot of people say the combat was a weak spot in Kingdom Hearts 1. And while I do agree that near the beginning, being limited to the same 3-hit combo over and over got old sort of quickly, by the end it feels pretty fluid and smooth. By adding special abilities and extra hits to your combos, you really feel like Sora is growing as a fighter compared to how he began. And combining this with magic, summons, and finishing moves really makes your arsenal feel diverse and powerful. I hit one major roadblock in my playthrough, and that was the giant Ursula fight. One, because the controls are a little wonky, but two, because her attacks are really powerful and she never lets up on the lightning strikes that wear you down really easily. What's cool is this teaches you to think outside the box and use Arrow as a shield to stay alive. She has a weak spot on the back of her head, and sometimes you'll have to move way back to avoid getting pulverized. It's a pretty dynamic fight. Unfortunately, it's the outlier, and for the most part, all those extra options for support aren't really that useful, and you can stick to button mashing to get through encounters. They tried to fix this in Kingdom Hearts 2, with the Pirates of Port Royal being weaker to magic and inflicting status effects on them, as well as being invulnerable in the shadows, so you have to be mindful of the environment. But frankly, the problem of too many options and not enough reason to use them is one that the series has always struggled with. Luckily, Kingdom Hearts is about a lot more than fighting through waves of enemies. You gain power-ups like a high jump and glide, which allow you to go back through old areas and find new goodies that you couldn't reach before. But they also help you get around faster in general. It was about exploring just as much as killing Heartless or unlocking keyholes. There's a lot to discover, from Trinity limits to Dalmatians to torn pages that open up bonus worlds. Perhaps my favorite part though is the endgame optional boss fights. They kick my butt over and over again, but the fact that they can just pop up out of the sand to make my day so much worse was an incredible surprise. I have never come close to beating Sephiroth, but I ain't even mad about that, he's a beast. They even added a few more in the final mix versions, but that's kind of the only noteworthy thing about them. It's a full package, and one that seems to have something for everyone. I hate the gummy ship and have no interest in building Legos here, but that's sort of what Kingdom Hearts is at its core, a melding of all sorts of different genres together. It's got things for kids and adults, noobs or veterans, fans of Disney as well as K-pop. But what about Kingdom Hearts 2? In a lot of ways, it's a fantastic sequel. New and old Disney worlds, better graphics, and a bigger story. Probably the best overhaul was the combat. now adding in the drive gauge, so Sora can wield 2 Keyblades at once. Seriously, as a teenage boy, this was a dream come true. I didn't mind the addition of reaction commands taking a more dominant role, unless it was the only way to defeat a boss or something. It definitely felt more stylized and an improvement on what the first game lacked. Sora has grown up now, just like me, so I felt an even stronger connection with him this time around. Things are more mature, but still lighthearted enough to not be uncomparable.
Say, fellas, did somebody mention the door to darkness?
The new locales and friends you meet along the way were really great expansions on the original, like the Pride Lands allowing you to become a lion and move around super fast, or entering the real-life realm of Pirates of the Caribbean. Even the aesthetic changes you undergo in the Timeless River or the Tron stage make you feel like anything is possible and you can't wait to see what happens next. The old worlds you visit are also wonderfully innovative, like entering the underworld with Hercules, or meeting Sandy Claus with Jack Skellington. It feels like a natural progression of their stories, and is a perfect blend of recognizable areas and uncharted territories. While Kingdom Hearts 2 has a lot going for it, there are some pretty pervasive downsides that I noticed on this recent playthrough. The first is what I'll call the minigame dilemma. Your second adventure definitely gets more creative with the tasks it wants you to do, but it falls into this trap of framing everything in the form of various minigames that need completed in order to progress the story. Protect Minnie Mouse as she walks slowly down the hallway, defeat these Heartless but make sure your morale meter doesn't deplete, beat these guys before the time runs out, or also beat these guys until the time runs out. It feels like you go from watching a cutscene to being put in a closed off box to deal with the situation and then watching another cutscene. Rinse and repeat. To be fair, this occasionally leads to some cool encounters, like making sure all the cursed gold is in the chest to be able to damage this boss, or battling 1,000 Heartless at once in an all-out war. But most of the time it feels like an arbitrary limitation placed on a battle for little to no reason. Remember how I said Kingdom Hearts 1 was all about exploring and solving the puzzles of how to advance in the world, or open up new pathways? Kingdom Hearts 2 feels like you're walking down a one-way street with no other options of how to get around. It's much more linear with less freedom to discover what to do on your own. Your goal is very clearly placed in front of you, and it feels like you're just working your way through chores on a checklist to reach the next mission. Like, look at Monstro's Belly or Agrabah in the first game. It pretty much just lets you go to figure out how to proceed by exploring the maze and finding the key to open the exit or secret door. Wonderland makes you track down the hidden presents around the world. Once you unlock the Mermaid Kick ability in Atlantica, you have to go find the hidden alcove that Ursula is hiding in. Good luck. Now, I'm not saying all of these are perfect either. The Deep Jungle has you backtracking all over the place for seemingly no reason, and in Atlantica, sometimes you have to activate certain dialogue before it'll let you proceed, even if you know exactly where to go. But all over Kingdom Hearts 2, there are these sections where you watch a cutscene, then simply walk a couple steps outside of a room to begin yet another cutscene. Look, it's fine to have mini-games. 100 Acre Wood is an optional world for some great downtime and an adorable side story. But here in the second game, it seems like it invades all the other worlds too. Gotta help the beast servants sprinkle water on these lanterns in this totally empty hallway. Wanna ride on the Jafar roller coaster in Agrabah Land? Oh, Ariel? Yeah, she's just a QuickTime Event sing-along now. I think a big part of this lack of freedom and exploration comes down to how they handle leveling and upgrades in this game. Instead of gaining the ability to glide or jump higher naturally throughout the story, now it's locked behind leveling up your drive gauges. So while that means you could grind and unlock them early, if you have no idea about them, you might go through the whole game without any clue of how to reach these higher ledges or be able to get around faster. And because it isn't a focus in the plot, exploration plays less of a role in gameplay as well. Those Trinity limits and Dalmatians are nowhere to be found, and the torn pages are simply along your main path, instead of hidden amongst the various environments. It took several worlds for me to realize this, but you don't actually gain any experience points from defeating bosses. Instead, it gives you a bonus attribute that's assigned to that specific fight. You could argue that this equips you with even more abilities and options to become a Heartless mindless killing machine. But it means that the only way to really level up at all is to grind on optional low-level fights along the narrow hallways it tries to lead you down in between cutscenes and minigames. But because of how the game is structured, you're not incentivized to waste your time doing this. Instead of scouring the worlds for solutions and fighting Heartless along the way, now it's better to just speed on by. On top of this, the Colosseum tournaments, one of my favorite aspects of the original, now no longer give you experience either. So there isn't really any purpose to completing them, other than bragging rights or if you're bored and have nothing else to do. And therefore, you're not required to do most of them anyway to progress the story. It's like the game knows what's important and what isn't. So instead of changing them to have appeal, they just leave them in as optional filler with no real value. In fact, a lot of the game feels like filler that didn't really need to be there. Atlantica is episodic but completely pointless. You visit each world twice now instead of once to complete them, but the secondary story is much shorter, and essentially just fighting a giant Heartless or tying up loose ends. And I completely forgot that gummy ship missions were a thing in the second game, because at first it didn't make you do any to reach a planet, but then it did later on and I was like, oh yeah, these are here. They were just that forgettable. I really can't say it's a terrible game. There's a lot that I truly love about it. It's just bogged down by all this other junk that doesn't emphasize the parts it excels at. And that brings us to the story. Alright, strap in everybody. If Kingdom Hearts 1 was simple and clean, Kingdom Hearts 2 is Sanctuary. Oh crap. I was hoping that the title of the second theme would be called Convoluted and Lame. Look, I can get behind the idea of the villain being an entire organization of mysterious cloaked figures, and they actually are the most interesting fights in the entire game, to their credit. But the way they try to tie it all in with nobodies and them being the second form of somebody who's gone heartless, like, the intro is notorious for being so drawn out, and yeah, replaying it, I didn't remember it being quite so long either. I know they're trying to set the stage of this fake world cracking around Roxas, but it could have been half as long and still had that impact. Destiny Islands was no thrill ride either, but at least it was over in 30 minutes. But really, it all fell apart for me within the last couple hours. Like, you remember how I said Ansem was the clear-cut villain in the first game and that was it? Well, now Ansem is all of these people at the same time. If you just take Ansem alone, it will take forever to explain his connection to the plot now. He was this guy, but no, that was actually someone else pretending to be him. And don't forget that it also is Riku too, because apparently if you accept evil in your heart, you can change bodies on a whim. And Ansem also is this guy, but it's when his face is wrapped in bandages, so he has a disguise, but he also changed his skin to a different color too, so he probably didn't need to go through all that trouble. But he also dies like right after he's revealed, along with his master plan that was this stupid galaxy contraption that he thought could somehow suck up a giant moon, so it all was pretty meaningless anyway. A switcheroo can be pretty impactful. Like in Kingdom Hearts 1, you think Riku is evil, but it's actually just Ansem taking over his body. Okay, that was a pretty neat plot twist. But this is so far removed from a switcheroo, you don't even care who the villain is anymore, because it's too complex to follow. And once you get to the other games, like Birth by Sleep, it's just a cluster yuck. Old characters have new names, new characters have old names. I want to play Kingdom Hearts, not Captain Ginyu's body swap bonanza. Listen, if there's anything this series has going for it, it's visiting the fascinating Disney worlds and interacting with the characters within. It's what gives it its charm. And luckily, it looks like Kingdom Hearts 3 is focusing on that, while also bringing a lot of new stuff to the table. Kingdom Hearts 2 had a better combat system, and while I still wish it encouraged the player to use the variety of abilities instead of just mashing your sword attacks, it looks like the third installment is introducing a lot of spectacle to the party. New Keyblade upgrades, special finishers, and even switching up the gameplay to take down baddies and bosses. I can't tell if that'll get old after seeing it for the first time, but it definitely looks beautiful so far. My wish list for this long-awaited sequel is pretty small, but it would include more exploration of worlds instead of an onslaught of minigames, more optional boss fights since 2 sort of dropped the ball a bit there, a clean combat system that doesn't rely too heavily on one option, but rather encourages a variety of moves, and most importantly, a fun story that takes us on an adventure through Disney worlds that we've grown to love over the last several decades, while not bogging it down with what the series has been known to do in the last few installments. Kingdom Hearts 1 is by no means perfect, but we can't forget about what made the series great in the first place, and I hope that it continues to be exactly what we wanted back when it first came out. Something unforgettably magical. Hey guys, thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed, something that would be an incredible help to me would be to support the channel on Patreon. If you saw my recent tweets, I'm slowing down on my upload schedule to focus on quality instead of quantity, and I want to make the best product I can. So knowing there are people that support me through thick and thin means the world to me. Even just $1 helps out way more than you know. If you want to join this list of awesome people, you can do so at patreon.com/snowmangaming. Be sure to follow me on Twitter for updates on future projects, as well as Twitch for regular live streams. I'll see you guys next time. Stay frosty, my friends.